So Thunderball. It
Yeah,
is it is the fourth film in the Bond franchise. It is
yeah.
the fourth Connery movie. It comes out in 1965.
It's
It is one
also
of
where they play around with a lot of money because when I
yeah.
was watching the movie, I realized that the aspect ratio
Mm.
changed from the previous three films. Like, the sets got bigger. They were filming on locations. Like, primarily the movie takes place in the Bahamas, so they were really like
Bahamas.
Bahamas. So they were really playing around with a lot of stuff, and it. I have to say, Thunderball is one of my favorite Bond movies, if not it's in my top three for sure. And
Oh, wow.
I'm not ashamed to say that it's in my top three. I
No,
really,
you
really,
should.
really, 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 really like this film. It's one of the Bond films I can watch on repeat and never get bored.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
let's examine that. I think so. So, as you say, the first thing you notice is that they've got more money, and you see that in the budget. They blow more shit up. They go to more places.
A lot of underwater shots.
Yes, we'll come to that.
Hmm.
But what I just want to sort of touch on briefly is just how confident this film feels. It is so aware of what is happening in and around the James Bond franchise. People are into Bond. They're into the world that Bond is depicting, the glamorous world of like beaches and ski slopes and travel and sex and violence and casinos and all
Hmm.
this other stuff. They're also clued into this newly confident Britishness that's going to culminate in some ways a year later when England win the World Cup, but which I think largely is the result of the Beatles and the Stones and the Who, and the pop explosion that they bring with them in the US. So I think there's just a lot of and the fashion and all the other stuff that's coming out
Yeah.
of London's West End. So there's just a lot going on that's going to make a film like this just it's really in the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Even though we've talked before about how Bond is not cool in that sense, it is tapping into something that a certain segment of the population are already responding to.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with that. I think they've really sort of, I think after Goldfinger and From Russia with Love, they really got into a good rhythm with these films. And even, it feels like if like Sean Connery felt a bit more comfortable in the role, they could have, he could have done more films.
I don't know. I think there's always a shelf life on any Bond actor, but like um, the point is that this sequence from Doctor No to You Only Live Twice is absolutely consistent. I mean, it just obviously Doctor No, they're trying to get some things right. From Russia with Love is its own thing, but there is a very consistent through line, and they feel just like in this film they just know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly how they want to do it. I love the way the music works in this. The way that the Barry scores the underwater stuff. I also really like a lot of the cinematography in this. I know that that's not something we often talk about in the Bond franchise, but there's some good
There's some good looking cinematography in this movie.
there is some good looking stuff, and it's obviously Ken Adams involved, so the production design is great. Um, but yeah, no, it looks great, and it very much makes you want to go on your
Yeah.
holidays. So the underwater. Should we talk about the underwater stuff?
Yeah, the underwater stuff. Just to point out, the cinematographer is Ted Moore, no relation to Roger Moore. He was a South African British
Dear God.
cinematographer. He won a Best Academy Award for Academy Award for Best Cinematography on A Man for All Seasons. Who has
Great film.
with Grant plays in that film as Henry VIII.
Yep, and a young John Hurt as well.
Is John Hurt in that movie?
Yes.
Ah. And he also was the cinematographer on, and he like the last Bond movie he did was The Man with the Golden Gun.
Oh well, I mean that is if and in fairness, that's if that was my last Bond film, I would be pretty. I wouldn't want to
Yeah,
work on another one. I mean,
yeah.
it's a shame he didn't stick around for The Spy Who Loved Me, but yeah,
I think it's really, I think in a way of like putting all the scenes underwater and like this visual storytelling, I think it's really interesting. And I think with the music, and it really fits the tone of what's happening, like especially in the underwater scene when they're hiding the plane with the camouflage, and it has that and all that stuff. I think it really
wonderful, mate.
fits really well, and it just adds just a good atmosphere to it, and it really kind of you could kind of see like, filmmaking tools, the technology is kind of growing and they're really playing around with stuff. And, this is just before like Jaws and stuff, and sharks appear in this movie and it's amazing. It's great.
The shark stuff is this is one of the first great shark movies, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And that should not be underestimated. This film, and I think the underwater shots that go on in this film are, they're not the first. We've seen underwater shots before with Creature from the Black Lagoon and stuff like that, but this is new in terms of how much we're seeing and how much, and also the color and the way they make everything look with the coral reefs and the harpoon guns and all this jazz. And it is a lot of time to spend underwater, but you don't feel like it's been overdone. And as you say, they actually make it coherent, which is not often the case in underwater stuff. I will also, I think this film has a sort of spiritual successor in the film The Deep.
The Nick Nolte, Robert Shaw movie.
Yes, which, I mean, I think The Deep was very much trying to cash in on the success of Jaws 2 years before. Unfortunately, it came out in 1977, so it has been forgotten. It's also
isn't that a Peter Benchley novel?
It is. Peter Yates directed the film.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
but it has a lot of there's this. It's set in the Caribbean. It has hidden things underwater. It has harpoon guns and it has a moray eel. So there are some similarities. But
yes.
Again, that thing of people will sit there and patiently watch scuba divers. But they actually cheat in The Deep, and they have the scuba things where you can actually talk a little bit. So I think that
in this one, I think in this one it feels more authentic, and then it's all silent in its music, and you hear all like sound effects and things like that. Just
and a great and they actually staged the final like battle underwater, which is terrific.
It's still a pretty like the cinematography and the sort of staging in how they shoot all that is pretty well done. I think that's pretty fantastic, and I really like all that stuff, and it's just really exhilarating to watch. And like its stakes are quite high because like the Spectre have all the cool stuff, and the British Army kind of get taken down.
I think they're supposed to be Americans, actually. I think they're supposed
to be Americans. I always thought for some reason I thought they were British. Sorry.
No. Yeah, I think because they're supposed to, they're going to blow up Miami, which in fairness, you kind of wish they succeeded. But you're right to point out that scene where the bomber crashes for the first time, because that's really the first time you see the underwater stuff. You're aware from the credits that there's going to be something watery happening.
Yeah.
You don't realize the full extent, and they spend a lot of time like hiding the plane. There's the shark that comes out, and you're like, wow, okay, so we've just expanded what Bond films are able to do. They're able to take us under the water and show us some sharks. And of course they do that again with Spy Who Loved Me and For Your Eyes Only, and
Live and Let Die briefly, but that's at the end.
Yeah, and that's in a tank. I mean, I'm talking about the sea. And so so I think that's all to the good. And you get a sort of single use location, but they also get some bonus ones in. There's some good Paris stuff in this, I think. What do you think about the pre-credit sequence? What do you think about
that? It's fun. I don't know how. I mean, watching it again, like last year and like fairly recently, it does kind of relate to the sort of overarching story from all the previous 3 films and Spectre and stuff like that. So there is like a sense of continuity between all of the 5 films.
Well, except for Goldfinger, because Goldfinger's nothing.
Except for Goldfinger, but then like...
Except if it was now, Christoph Waltz would be like, do you remember Goldfinger? He was also one of my people. It's like, shut up.
Yeah, that would suck. That would suck if they revealed that kind of thing. Yeah,
I think there are people who claim that Goldfinger is a Spectre agent, but he isn't. Take it from me. And I'm not prepared to argue about that.
Yeah. But the pre-credit sequence is pretty good. I like his little jetpack thing, and his like little water gun on the Aston Martin, whatever.
It's good to see the Aston. It's good to see it doing some different stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of add more stuff to it. I do like his scuba diving machine thing that makes him like go fast, and it fires like harpoons and things like that.
Oh yeah, well, we haven't got there yet because we got to talk about those gadgets. But
Yeah,
what I think is all to say is the pre-credit sequence.
sounds like you're saying Cretans.
Yeah, no, I couldn't.
Or the Cretans.
That sequence, just for me, it doesn't set up the film with the same success that the Goldfinger one does, or the
Russia with Love one does.
well, the From Russia with Love one is also a bit crap. Actually, I'm trying to think of another good Connery one, and maybe there isn't. Maybe the Goldfinger one's the only really good. And this is pretty good. I mean,
it is pretty good. I think
what's the pre-credit sequence in You Only Live Twice? It's the space hijack, right?
Space hijacking, and then he fakes his death in Hong Kong.
Right. Well, that's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
But like I don't know. So that leaves you thinking like, okay, we don't know. But I love from the very beginning of the movie, after the credits, when you get Largo, and
Largo.
Adolfo Celli, who just looks like he was born to play like mafia dons.
He's my favorite villain. I think he's pretty badass, in my opinion.
Yes, and he has some great help. But I love that scene where he goes into the Paris Spectre headquarters, and you have number one behind the like little Venetian blind thing.
Number one played by Joseph Wiseman, Dr. No.
Dr. No, yes, but not voiced by Joseph Wiseman.
I think it is voiced by Joseph Wiseman, or it's voiced by, because the guy who's the actor that gets shot in Dr. No, that was a Smith & Wesson, You've Had Your Six. What was the act? Because he actually played the body of Blofeld in some of the movies.
Yes.
I think that might be him.
So
Joseph Wiseman.
So he plays the doctor. I'm sorry, I'm looking this up. He plays the other doctor. There's a lot of doctors in Dr. No. Hang on a minute. He's also actually in Dial M for Murder.
That's true. He's the guy who tries to kill Grace Kelly.
His name is Anthony Dawson. He's
Anthony
Professor
Dawson.
Dent.
Yes.
He's Professor Dent. So not Dr. Dent. Professor Dent in Dr. No.
Mm-hmm.
And he is Blofeld in From Russia with Love. But Blofeld in this movie is Dr. No from Dr. No. Clear?
Right. Yes, that makes sense.
We figured it out. So anyway, I love that thing. I love the fact that they tie in the Great Train Robbery, which had happened, I think the year before or that year, and they were like, it was Spectre. And then he fries a guy in his seat, which is great.
But I like the fact that he fries the guy sitting next to him. That you think it's going to be that guy because he's sweating and stuff, and then he ends up frying the guy who's like, and then he dies.
Yes. So that's I think that's pretty well done.
What do you think about the clinic stuff? Just out of curiosity. Like with James Bond in the clinic, because I feel like that kind of, I mean, apart from me liking the movie a lot, I do feel like that part really drags the film, the beginning of the film out a little bit.
It's a long, Thunderball feels long, and it is long.
It's just over 2 hours, 130 minutes.
Yeah, so I mean that's not too long, I guess, but it has moments where it slows down a bit. No, I mean it's fun. And Molly Peters is lovely, and
he does get a bit. I don't know.
It's definitely problematic. Like it's
it was like the whole like behave yourself, Mr. Bond. I think that's a bit #MeToo a little bit.
Well, it's just horrible and creepy.
Yeah.
I mean
that bit doesn't quite hold up.
Well, and where he like threatens to sort of have her job imperiled unless she like shags him in the steam bath. I don't think this is the politics of that particularly good, but there is, and I think the whole thing with the tit for tat exercise machine, death stuff, like where he needs like pulled to pieces by the rack, and then he tries to steam the other guy. That doesn't really work. But I think what does work is the cool creepiness around the bandaged guy, and that whole sequence in the hotel next to the clinic, and that's when we get to meet I think one of the characters who really makes this film come together, and that's Luciana Paluzzi as Fiona Volpe. She's so great in this, and she's like that first real like truly evil Bond
femme fatale kind of thing.
And it's like you don't see this character really again in full force until Xenia Onatopp in Goldfinger. Like
Yeah,
a sort
that's
of
true. I think they tried to do the same thing again in You Only Live Twice, but not with the same results.
well, no, not at all. I mean, she's Helga or whatever her name is. She's crap.
Yeah, she's useless.
You tried to feed Luciana Palucci to the piranhas, and she'll make those piranhas into fucking sushi or something. You know, she's not
Yeah,
gonna.
no,
You know,
she'd
no
find her
one.
way out of the pool.
Yeah, she's no sucker. I mean, and it's only
Yeah,
and it's actually, frankly, thanks to other people's incompetence that she dies because she gets shot by her own bloke. And
that's
you know,
true. Yeah.
so she's I love her. I love everything she does, and in this movie, I love how she's set up. It's good actually to see Bond have a woman stand up to him who's kind of his match. And I think there's an interesting reference that she makes where she's like, "Oh, and I'm supposed to have sex with you, and then I'm supposed to hear like heavenly choirs and go to the side of righteousness," which I think is a reference to how easily Bond overpowers
Mhm.
pussy galore. So I think that's a really nice little nod to the fact that it ain't gonna happen this time. This
Yeah,
lady
exactly.
coming to get you. She's gonna give him a really hard time, and actually it's kind of a shame when she disappears from the film because she's such an active threat. But as you say, then you've got number two.
Number two, Emilio Largo with his.
Who does number two work for?
That's a great one.
Show that turd who's boss.
What did you eat?
um,
Oh, help me! I'm horribly burnt.
okay, we can't just quote Austin. Well, that is relevant because that's also a reference from this film.
Exactly. Yeah.
I Claudine Auger as well, the late Claudine Auger as Domino.
Yeah.
She's great, and I think she also has a certain strength in her, and brings again this sort of continental Mediterranean feel. Even though the film is set in the Americas, you've got, you know, basically all the main characters outside of Bond are played by these kind of European film stars, and I think that Claudine Auger does a great job, and I love the fact that she ends up killing number two.
Yeah, I like the fact that she, I think it's like a nice little moment of where she kind of takes back some sort of the control that he had over her and stuff. I think that felt more satisfying, her killing him, than Bond killing Largo.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I think Adolfo deserves a real pat on the back because those wetsuits are not flattering on him, and he wears them for a lot of the film.
He does, but I think
he's quite. It's just there's like a bit of a pasta belly going on.
That's true, but I mean, he's a great villain because he's not like sending other people to do his dirty work. He gets down and deep in the water with the guys, and he does quite a lot of stuff with a knife and
from the
everything.
front.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, he's got great. I mean, he's got a great supporting cast of those guys. Like Vargas is a great character, and there's just a lot of and he's got a pool full of sharks. So that brings us to the gadget. The fucking little pen thing that he uses to breathe for 4 minutes now and then is like one of the most annoyingly convenient gadgets in the whole Bond franchise. It's like, oh shit, they've closed the roof, but luckily I have a small amount of air.
I can make my way out of here.
Have you any idea, like, how much air could possibly be stored in that thing? It's like this big.
Yeah, but also thinking about how much air is actually in oxygen tanks, like in scuba diving tanks.
You'd have to compress it to an impossible, and if you breathe on that, it'd be like you compressed it to the same. Think about that. I mean, how? And so if it just doesn't make any sense. I hate that gadget. I really, every time I see it, and he looks like an ass when he's putting it in his mouth.
Kind of reminds me of the mouth breathers that they have in the Phantom Menace when they go down to the Gungans.
Yeah, fuck that.
It's like little whatever the fuck it's called.
Yeah, it's proper, like it's proper George Lucas level shit. I mean, and the sequence in the shark pool is great. Although there is this moment where
There is actually a moment in the movie. I actually remembered reading this on the trivia page. He actually, because there's a moment in the tunnel where they open up the thing to let the sharks through, so that they eat them in the other pool, which is like the
the
non-shark
eating
pool.
pool.
Yeah, so there's a moment where the shark pops in, and you kind of see Sean Connery do like this wide-eyed thing, and that was a real reaction from Sean Connery because he
I
didn't
love
expect
that. I was like,
he
don't
didn't
worry, Sean, we won't use real sharks.
because he didn't expect the shark to come through, and there's like a big plate of glass protecting him between the sharks and stuff. So he was like, "Oh shit!" like that. He just wasn't expecting the sharks to come that quick.
Yeah, there is a scene where you can see the glass plate pretty clearly because, like an idiot, whoever's doing, I think it is Connery or his double, has got his hand like on the glass.
No, I think it is. I think it's Connery that does a lot of that stuff.
But yeah, I love that bit where he's just in the tunnel and the shark sort of goes past him, and they're like, "All right,
It's like, sorry, mate. Better luck next time.
yeah, yeah." That sequence is fun. The shootout's fun. Everything at Largo's headquarters is fun. Everything on Largo's boat is fun. This film is fun. There's
Yeah,
a
that's
lot of
really good
fun.
fun. I do wish there was like a scene where like Blofeld was talking with Largo about like the situation of what was going on with the operation, and then finding out that Bond was at the house and he didn't kill him.
Right, or the fact that like he knows he wears his Spectre. I get, okay, you're Spectre, you're part of a secret organization, but I've never seen these rings before in any other film. And he's like, where I come from, and he's like, yeah, okay, you've just revealed that you work for Spectre.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like Blofeld.
Therefore, you've just revealed that you are here with the bomb. My other problem is where they're flying around looking for where the plane could be.
Yeah.
So the plot, everyone, is that they've stolen atomic bombs and they're going to blah 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 blah.
And they've hidden the plane and stuff.
Hidden the plane. Watch the film. And so they're going to look for the plane. They're flying over, and Bond is like, "What's down there?" And Felix, played by the brilliantly named Rick Van Nutter, is like, "Oh, there's nothing down there. It's just a bunch of sharks and stuff, and we haven't looked there." And it's like, well, of course the fucking plane is
yeah, but
there.
he says like Golden Grotto sharks, and he remembers Largo saying, "Oh, Golden Grotto sharks," and then he was like, "Oh," puts two and two together.
I
And
don't
then
even think it's to do with the sharks. Also, there's no such thing as a Golden Grotto shark. He just says it's the Golden Grotto, and we haven't looked there. And it's like, well, let's fucking
let's go down there. I was like, why are we going down there? The plane is down there. Just take us down.
Yeah. Also, the massive
one of the sharks to
thing,
distract the other.
the massive plane-shaped thing that you can see from the sky. It's probably that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of stupid, but it is a good sequence. It's quite suspenseful and a little bit like, yeah, because he discovers the body and stuff.
It's a bit like in For Your Eyes Only, and also in Tomorrow Never Dies, where they find the bodies in the.
Yeah, it's almost like the Bond film kind of does things over and over again.
Yeah, exactly.
Bond films. So I think we've kind of covered the film, and I think it is an enormous amount of fun. But
there were some problems that were happening off camera.
I wanted to ask you about this because I haven't actually read up on this, and but this is where a lot of issues take off because. And actually, we haven't even mentioned the other elephant in the room, which is Never Say Never Again. So let's talk about the dreaded Kevin McClory.
So Kevin McClory was someone I was not aware of until watching the documentary Everything or Nothing. And so Ian Fleming had met Kevin McClory through mutual friends, and they began working on ideas that would turn into James Bond. And they actually developed the ideas and treatments with another writer called Jack Whittingham. And so Ian Fleming published, in 1961, he published an idea that he had worked on, and that became the 9th James Bond novel, Thunderball. Problem was, Jack Whittingham and Kevin McClory both felt like it was their idea, and they weren't credited, and they took Ian Fleming to court and sued him. And after 9 days, Ian Fleming had to pay £35,000, and future versions of the novel were credited as based on a screen treatment by Kevin McClory, Jack Whittingham, and Ian Fleming in that order. And that really broke, in many ways, Ian Fleming. And he did pass away quite, around this sort of time. And, they really wanted, Cubby Broccoli and Zaltzman, they really wanted to make Thunderball the next Bond movie. And they went to him and they made a deal with him where Kevin McClory was the sole producer, and they would take executive producer roles. And this went on for like 50 years. Like Kevin McClory kept on kind of coming back because he really wanted to hold on to these Spectre ideas and make movies. And one of those movies that ended up, being Never Say Never Again. When Octopussy went into production, he went into production with the competitive film Never Say Never Again with Sean Connery. So Never Say Never Again is essentially a Thunderball remake. And this went on for like 50. Yeah, and it went on for like 50 years.
And also Connery was a cunt for doing it, frankly.
Yeah, and he was pretty bitter against Broccoli anyway, which was quite bad on his part. And this went on for up until 2006 when Kevin McClory died. This was a few days after Casino Royale, and then all the rights and everything like that. And that's probably it's like there were a lot of legal battles and rights issues that clouded a lot of films, and it didn't they couldn't use the Spectre and Ernst Stavro Blofeld character for a really long time due to Kevin McClory kind of having control over it and stuff.
Although they did make 4 films after this that have, or 3 films after this that have a connection to.
Yeah, they did, but I think after that, when they get into the Roger Moore era, then they had to swim around. They had to swim around it.
It's really. I mean, it's sad because it's so stupid and avoidable, and it's all to do with these egos and people trying to make a bunch of money off. And it's like, how good an original can any idea related to James Bond be? When
but
it doesn't.
Also,
I mean, it's silly of Fleming to have gotten into bed with these fuckers anyway. But like, it was like, it shows just how mean-spirited people can be around these kind of very successful.
I think in a lot of ways Kevin McClory could have been less bitter about it. He could have just been like, okay, fine, and then moved on instead of holding on to that grudge for 50 years, basically.
Right, and I think that like in anything, it's not. No one has the sole idea for it, because obviously the whole franchise stems from the mind of Fleming, and so any idea that you have is really an idea based on that. So you say, at what point does your intellectual property really just come from someone else's? It's just really hard to argue that you have some kind of exclusive right to, at least, I mean, especially to the whole idea of Spectre, which is already the films have already established them as a thing as early as Doctor No. I mean, they are an invention of the movies.
Yeah, exactly. I think he
novels.
Yeah, I think he sort of stepped into it when he saw how much money these movies were making. It kind of.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it's so cynical, and I think it's, I don't know what the other side of the story would be. Probably Broccoli and Saltzman didn't cover themselves in glory, and there's a lot of it. It's amazing to me that so much bitterness comes out of these first movies, that Connery ends up hating Broccoli and betraying him and starring in Never Say Never Again, and McClory and the Broccoli and Saltzman are at each other's throats. And it's like, wow, you've just made 5 really good spy movies back to back, and now everyone hates each other. It's like, wow, fucking hell, victims of your own.
And it seems like they had a really strong family unit. Like they holiday together, and Michael Caine was on holiday with them and stuff like that. It's like they had a really.
You need someone else to step into the role.
I'm your guy.
Yeah. My name, okay, no, is I would, yeah. So that's all the stuff. But anyway, so let's do the fun bits.
Yes. What's your favorite bit in the movie?
My favorite bit in this film, it has to be between Connery in the pool with the sharks, which is pretty fun. Yeah. But it has the mouth breather in it, so I'm a little bit less fond of that than I ought to be. I really don't know off the top of my head. I have to think about it. So I'm trying to play the film through in my mind here. It could very easily be that whole sequence with Fiona Volpe and chasing him through from the bit where she picks him up. I know that's a lot of bits, but I just love her. But as a favorite bit, yeah, I mean, I think I could pick out 2 probably. One is just the bad guys discussing eliminating Bond next to the pool filled with sharks as they shoot shotguns at as they do clay pigeon shooting. That's pretty great. But the other
Yeah.
bit, whenever I think about Thunderball, one bit pops into my mind, and that is the guy getting the spear gun in his eye.
Oh yeah, that's true. In the underwater sequence, yeah, that's true.
And also the bit where all the animals come out.
And all the animals are like, "The fuck's going on?"
Yeah. So so I know I picked a lot. But I'm gonna go with I am gonna go with the harpoon and eye guy because I think that's just too good.
Yeah, my favorite bit is another harpoon related moment, and that's the bit where Vargas gets killed, and he has that great line where he says, "I think you got the point."
Yeah.
I just love that bit.
Yes.
But also, it's like a really kind of good scene as well, where you start to like question what Bond really feels about with Domino. Does he actually really care about her, or he's trying to seduce her to try and get her to help him, prevent explosions from happening around the world and stuff? Makes you think a little bit. I don't know.
Right. I mean, I think that's a very good bit because he sort of, he has exploited her massively by seducing her, and then he tells her about her dead brother.
Yeah, they have sex, and then he reveals the fact that your brother is dead in Largo.
Underwater sex.
Yeah, they actually did delete a scene where like underwear would float up, but they thought that was a bit risque.
It's also just daft. Oh god, there's some of the. I mean, that would have happened if this was a Roger Moore movie. It would have been. Definitely would have done that. So
would have had like a double take turtle, like.
yeah, exactly. A double take turtle. That is exactly what would have happened. What? So location.
Stupidest bit. What's the stupidest?
Oh, the stupidest bit. Stupidest bit. The guy getting his harpoon in the eye. No, I think it's nearly the jetpack. But I think it is the bit in the clinic where he finds the guy who just tried to kill him, and instead of like interrogating him, he puts a broom through the handle of his steam machine and turns up the knob and like cooks the guy for a little bit.
Yeah, that's a bit
stupid. I think that's really fucking stupid. And it doesn't achieve anything, and it's not particularly clever, or it's just really dumb.
That's true.
What about you?
I'm just trying to think of a stupid bit.
The Bond film.
I think like the silliest bit. I don't know. I had it and then it just went. Oh god, what happened? Oh yeah, rocket launcher from Bike.
What's wrong with that?
It's a bit silly. I don't know. That whole bit.
Of course, it looks great. She blows up a car with a motorbike with a rocket launcher on it. You love his big fucking rucksack with the propeller on it. See, I think that's really stupid. And he looks like an when you had those, you see these people with the giant backpacks.
What, the backpackers?
Not backpackers, but like school children or just like that particular
yeah.
I've got my laptop in my backpack because I want to look after my back instead of having a shoulder bag like a normal person. And it's like it looks like it's just a nerdy stupid. It's like and sort of goes through. I don't know. I think that's pretty stupid, but you seem to like it. And the rocket launchers on the bike are cool.
I just think that whole bit is a bit. I don't know. It's so quick and I don't know. It feels.
I will say, you are gearing up for an Aston Martin car chase at that point, and he's even got his little gadget.
Yeah, he's got the gadgets already out, and then she shows up, and then it's a bit like, oh, it's over and done with. Actually, I think because you picked two. I mean, you picked two moments earlier. I think my other stupid moment is when they leave the poor physicist to drown in the water because he says, "I can't swim" when they jump off the boat, and they basically just leave him in the water.
That's right. He's never seen again.
He's never seen again. It's like they get picked up by a plane and he's like, help, help.
Just surrounded by sharks. Well,
it's like I can't swim.
Well, if you're going to work for Spectre, you got to take the consequences.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so fine. So locations. There are three.
There are three. I'm going to say the Bahamas. I like it when Bond goes tropical.
You are such a Margaritaville, Florida dude, aren't you? Are you going to retire and move to Florida? I think you are.
I'm not going to move to Florida. I'm not going to move to God's waiting room. I'm not going to do that.
Mm-hmm. So I'll say Paris then because we like Paris. And
how many Bond films have been set in Paris? Thunderball, View to a Kill, any other ones? Is that it?
I think it might be. Wait, isn't there a Pierce Brosnan one that takes place a bit in?
That's Berlin. Tomorrow Never Dies.
Is it Berlin or is it Hamburg?
Hamburg. Sorry, it's Hamburg, not Berlin.
Um,
I think it's just those two films.
just is that it? Is that the only one?
I think it's those two films. Like,
Isn't Roger Moore in Paris at some point? Oh no, in View to a Kill.
View to a Kill. But then apart from Thunderball and View to a Kill, there's no other films that are set in Paris.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'm definitely going for Paris then. Okay.
Who would you recast?
I would recast. I think this. So my project is I would turn this film into a western, and I'd recast. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with it. Tommy Lee Jones as M. Come on.
Code name Thunderball.
Yeah. Exactly. Just like I'm putting out an APB search every hen house, outhouse. I would love to see that. I would love to see an American analog of Bond where M is played by Tommy Lee Jones and Bond is played by, like, I don't know, Alan Ladd. I don't think if you were casting an American actor from the golden age of Hollywood to play Bond, you could do John Garfield. Actually, he was pretty good. Anyway, so what about you? Who are you recasting?
I think as a joke, I would probably replace Rick Van Nutter with Alan Arkin.
That's pretty good. Why'd you hit me, asshole?
What are you doing?
We haven't looked on this full of sharks, you nutnik.
It's the Golden Grotto.
That's pretty good, actually. I can actually see that really working.
That could work very well because he already, he was in The In-Laws, that the spy film that he did with, I think Peter Falk is the other guy in that. So I really like Alan Arkin. I was about to say Alan Alda or Alan.
You could have Alan Alda as James Bond and Alan Arkin as Felix. You could have a great time.
You're down there with a golden. Oh, that's more Walter Brennan. I can't really do.
No, I think you were close there. You were close to Alan Alda.
Anyway, it sounded a bit like Walter.
This is not the place to workshop material.
I don't know why they never brought back Jack Lord. I know he was busy doing like Hawaii Five-0, but they could have brought him back for like another Bond movie.
Yeah, it's not like he was like a crazy busy movie star at this point.
He could have hopped on
Hawaii Five-0 starts in '68. Is that right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, he should have been. I think Jack Lord is the coolest Felix.
Yeah.
But, with his big lady sunglasses. But we'll get to him because we have to talk about Dr. No still.
That is true. So how many martinis are we giving this movie? You sounded like a cat just then.
Sorry. 4?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it 4. If I was being really generous, I'd give it 4.5.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna give it a solid 4.
It's a good solid 4. I think it's a pretty solid Bond movie.
Well, you say it's in your top 3.
Yeah, it's in my top 3.
You've given higher marks to at least 3 other Bond films.
No, I think it's definitely one of my favorites.
It's not as good as The Spy Who Loved Me by our standards. It's not as good as Skyfall or Casino Royale.
No, but it's pretty.
I mean, but there's also that thing of like, it doesn't matter if it's as good or not. If it's a personal favorite, then
as a personal favorite, given
wants what the heart wants, Anders, and your heart wants to see Sean Connery strapped to an underwater propeller.
I just like all the underwater stuff. I just like all that stuff. I like the sea.